I'm Joshua Hanlon here in Billund, Denmark, and today I'm joined by a couple of the designers from the LEGO Star Wars line, and they're going to talk to us all about what it's like to design LEGO Star Wars sets and give us some insight into the sets that they brought here today. So if you each want to start off by introducing yourselves and then talking about kind of what you do related to Star Wars line.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jens. I'm design director on LEGO Star Wars, and I'm responsible for the overall design of the products for the LEGO Star Wars line.
Okay, sounds good.
Hey, I'm Jakob. I'm a design manager from the graphic design side, so I'm responsible for all the characters and the product graphics like stickers, etc.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, we've got kind of the whole package here with different parts of the design process involved. So we'll start off with just kind of some of your background, because I know that's a question a lot of people are interested in related to LEGO designers, is kind of education and things like that, and what your background is before you became a LEGO designer. If you want to start with that.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't have a designer background.
Okay.
Many years ago, I was educated in the graphic business, and then by more or less coincidence, I got the job at LEGO, and that was through my hobby. I'm building plastic scale models, you know the small plastic kits, and then I was at an exhibition in Copenhagen where some LEGO people grabbed me and asked me if I wanted to work for LEGO, but that's like 19 years ago now. So
you've got a few years under your belt then.
Yeah, and actually 18 of them on LEGO Star Wars specifically. Okay. So
you've been at this a while. That's really interesting. Okay, and then how about you?
I'm a communication designer by education, so I was trained to be an art director essentially, and I came here 7.5 years ago, I think. I started on LEGO City, and yeah, worked my way to LEGO Star Wars. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if there was kind of a specific degree that you would recommend for people, or someone looking to maybe become a LEGO designer, is there some line of education that you would recommend they pursue?
Well, an education as an industrial designer is always a benefit, of course. Okay. But and then next to that, how do you say? Play with LEGO.
Just be passionate about the hobby.
Exactly. So we have actually a variety of different backgrounds. On the graphic design side, we also have some illustrators. Obviously, graphic design is the other study that you would partake in, but what we do is product design. So one way or other, you'd benefit from that kind of knowledge. And we have some freelancers, etc.
So yeah, a variety. There's a variety of paths then to this career. That's very interesting. So now we'll dive a little more into the specific Star Wars sets that you guys brought with us today. So one thing that I think is always interesting with Star Wars, because you're building off of kind of source material a lot with movies and things, how does that work with kind of Disney and Lucasfilm and kind of getting that source material early enough to work with sets? How does that whole process work?
Well, now we're in a situation where there's new movies coming out, and it's sometimes a little bit of a challenge because we need the reference early. We're developing the models at the same time as they are making the movie. So it also means that if there are changes in the movie, it affects us and we have to change the model and so on. They're doing their best to give us the reference that we need. But I have to say it's more difficult when it's new movies instead of the years where we just made models on the classic ones.
Mm-hmm. And then from sort of the minifig graphic design process, how does that work for you?
I think it's pretty similar in that sense that we actually get to see early concept art, we get a story brief, etc. And so more and more pieces tend to fall into place, and so it's usually Jens and me and someone from the marketing side being really, trying to understand what the movie is going to be about. So then piece by piece we find out more. And characters are obviously, done very early, but so are some certain vehicles. So usually we can already kind of figure out, that would make a nice set, that would be a great product. Here's how we could link to the story and such.
And one thing we have to mention is that the part of getting the reference and so on and get to know the movie also involves that we typically have to go to Pinewood Studios in England and visit the sets and potentially meet some of the actors and so on. So that is actually quite exciting.
Someone has to do it, right?
I mean, it's a tough job, but you'll take it.
Exactly.
So then kind of years ago when the first Star Wars movies were released, did you kind of grow up or have you been Star Wars fans for a long time even before you started working for LEGO?
I think most of the people, all of us that's working on the project, are old fans. I remember from my childhood was in first grade in school. That was in 1977 when the very first Star Wars movie came out. I remember that. So it's an important thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're all fans, as Jens said, and that definitely helps. I mean, we also need to, just like fans sometimes contain kind of the geek side of ourselves, to think, would that actually be an appealing product for a broader audience, or is that just something that, would probably a little bit too niche? So yeah, but it's exciting. It's super exciting.
You can't dive like way too deep into the Star Wars lore, sort of. You gotta.
Absolutely. I mean, but then again, we also try to. Now, I didn't bring a Boba Fett here, but that's one of those things. For instance, you might have noticed that we got, two different versions of Boba Fett: the Empire Strikes Back version, and then there's the Return of the Jedi version, because he changes costume. So we know, obviously, our fans take great care about all those little details. And so everything we do, we try to be really spot on. It's something that's also appreciated, of course, in our collaboration with Lucasfilm. So they try to get us all this reference, and we in turn try to match the characters really closely. I don't know if you have any good examples. Maybe this guy over here, being recently released. Like, this was a great opportunity, and with all the metallic colors we have in the meantime, we could really bring to life this character.
Getting the head shape just right and everything, and like you said, the nice color scheme with that.
Exactly. And obviously this is an example from this existed in the past, whereas when it's something new, as Jens said, it's usually, it's not always completely in sync, so we have to work to try and avoid mistakes, and mostly we succeed. But you probably all know of the one example where there was a certain discrepancy with the movie. I don't know if you want to tell about this, but we had Kylo Ren Shuttle. It was mostly a CG thing, so it comes a bit later in the process. And, for the longest time, it should have had these great long wings that were stiff and just folding in. We worked hard to get a function in that would fold in the wings. And then we saw the first trailer. So, yeah, we discovered it together with the others. And it was a nice story. Sometimes it happens, but most of the time we try to avoid those.
Mm-hmm. You do your best to plan as much as possible.
Yeah, that's how we're doing it. Mm-hmm. So I also have to say, when you talk a lot about for the fans and so on, and that's of course really, really important for us. I'd say when we're doing the products, we're trying to make something. First of all, that's super. That's a cool toy for the children, and kids. They are a big part of our development process as well. We have weekly kids tests where throughout the whole design process we have children in that are playing with our models. That's also where we see, maybe a ship, a model that we have suggested and we think is super, super cool. It's just standing in a corner and nobody's playing with it. We'll probably never ever make it, as I said. So it is this merge. We want to make something that is a cool toy and great for the kids, but also appealing to the fans. And I think we also, of course, we have the UCS, the big models that are more targeted, actually, fans and the adult collectors. So that's how we are generally thinking and working.
Yeah, so you have those different levels of sets, kind of price point and everything that reaches as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So then you mentioned earlier you kind of see the source material early and everything. You might even visit the set and meet some of the actors and all of that. When you see all of that, what kind of criteria you're kind of thinking for sets that you're going to work on from that line? What's kind of in the back of your mind as you're seeing all that source material?
Well, I think it's something that happens in close dialogue with Lucas, Disney normally, because they have all the insights into the movie and so on. So when we have seen the first draft or read the script for a new movie, we would, point out the things we believe could be strong sets, both scenes as play sets, and the different ships and vehicles. And then we consult Lucas Disney and check up with them. Okay, do you think this is the right assortment we have here? And then we start making the sketch models, and then later, as I mentioned, that's where we bring in the kids and then let them play with it and so on. So the kids are definitely again here. Also, they mean a lot.
Interesting. Yeah. Has there ever been a product that maybe you worked on that you brought in the kids and you thought it was really great and did not go over well at all with kind of test groups or things that you were surprised how the reaction was?
I think we constantly find some things that you had not considered simply. I think generally we've probably by now figured out a pretty good recipe. So we tend to have less of those surprises, but of course they're still there, and we test on all different levels. So we might just test a play concept, or we might test actually certain characters. Every price point in itself is very important. Every product is very important. So we really need to make sure that it's very strong. And of course, Star Wars is a very long-running line. So one of the things we also have to take great care in is trying to, plan for the long game, because we're going to have more products coming up. So what is sitting nicely on the shelf next to the products currently out? What are our future plans? What are our potential future plans? This is really where it gets a bit tricky. So we probably have our sleeve full of products that are not currently existing, but they just might make it later on when it's a better fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And one question that I know a lot of fans have related to the Star Wars line is, like you mentioned, the Star Wars line has been around for a number of years now, and there have been a number of re-releases of kind of a lot of the iconic sets. So how do you kind of approach that process with re-releasing some of the more iconic things versus releasing a brand new set of something that hasn't had a Lego set made of it before?
Well, when we are creating the assortment, as you probably have seen, our assortment first of all consists of both classic Star Wars models and also related to all the new content and movies and so on. And that's simply how it'll always be like that. We want to make products so there's something for everybody. That's super important for us. Same thing, we are normally not branding it episode, whatever. We just think of it, it's all Lego Star Wars. And that's how we want everybody to think about it. But the strategy when we are doing something, we of course want to bring newness, new functions, new ships, whatever. But when we're doing the classic ones or the ones that we've done before, we're always thinking a lot about that the new product have to be better than the previous one. And that's also why when I'm briefing a designer, a model builder, it is start from scratch. The first thing we do is we look into the research that have been done on the previous model. So if there's been consumer complaints, let's say the wings fall off when you're playing with blah blah something. If there's something they've been complaining about, or it could be a little detail on a minifig or whatever, we of course improving that. That's really our starting point. What was what was the issues with the previous one, and then starting from scratch. We know there are collectors out there that might have the previous version, so there are something new for everybody in it, even though it's something we've done before. And again, it is, the Star Wars universe, there are limits even to the Star Wars galaxy, and there is a certain number of models, and there are some that there will probably more or less always be an X-Wing starfighter on the shelf. So again, we are of course over the years going to make many versions of it.
And then you brought some really interesting kind of art here, sketches and things. So if you want to talk about kind of what this is and how this relates to the design process?
Yeah. So pretty much our communication now. I have printouts here. Obviously, mostly everything's digital now. Plus these, the way these look constantly evolve. So currently they look very different. But this is basically what we designed the minifigure on. Technically, this is only half the size, so we designed it 4:1, and obviously we need to consider that what our final product is very small. So usually when you get a new designer on board, they take a while to really understand the style, because you're trying, you're seeing everything super large on the screen, so obviously we're working with printing constraints, etc. Because the product is always, the physical product is always our king. We know we have a lot of games and peripheral things. We have TV shows, we have movies, but it needs to be something that is part of our Lego DNA, that it's basically this tiny little figure. And so you can see here, this is what we use to communicate with our partners at Lucasfilm, who then would go on to approve it. Obviously, it's a closed dialogue, and oftentimes with an IP product, we have to choose from our palette which colors do we give our characters. They might not be matching. I mean, sometimes we get really lucky, Stormtroopers, the Guavian Death Gang, and sometimes it's a bit harder. Now here there's some interesting bits, because this is from it's a little bit dark in the printout. This is from the Freemakers series, and so we kind of closely collaborated with the story teams we have creating the series and Lucasfilm to come up with these characters. And as you can see, these are some drawings. We actually worked with Jack Chang on some of those characters, so they technically would exist in a non-minifigure shape. Of course, I wouldn't want to say that's established canon. This is an interesting one because you're always trying to, try to find balance between, something that's kind of gruesome and this being a cute toy.
Right, not so gruesome that kids don't want to touch it.
Thankfully, it's still a very small figure, and I think we managed to hit it somewhere where it's still, is also not too sad of an expression. Yeah, this was Bosk, released in the Bounty Hunter Battle Pack recently. So sometimes this is actually an example of us going back and looking really at the source material, and we came up with saying, well, if you look at the color, it's not that bright yellow we used in the past. It's probably more of this lighter, springy yellow. And in the talks with Lucas, we actually discussed what color he should be, because Bosk is notoriously hard to nail down. He's kind of between brown and green, and we ended up deciding on green simply because it's more the image you have in your head, even though the actual figure might be more on the brown side.
Something interesting with Star Wars is you've obviously got, minifigs like that with all of these, weird head shapes and things like that. When you're designing a set with new minifigs, what's the process like if you want them to make a new mold or something for a new minifig piece? Is that a tough process for you, or how does that work?
It starts very early. A good example is the First Order Stormtrooper. Now, this is probably one of the, this had the longest kind of preparation phase, so to speak, for us, where we had a really early insight and we started literally with just sketches. Nowadays, we usually get reference material and we visit the sets, so we have the actual elements, the real props available. Back then, it was more of a startup where the whole shape was still being defined. And what we do is basically we go in and we take something like this and have to work out early on which detail are we going to achieve by printing, which is basically the expression we have here. It's a typical Lego style, a very simple shape, but with detailed printing on, and which details are going to be molded on. So we chose, for instance, to go for this groove because it also ties it to the design language used on older products. And so that's usually what we do. It's a lot of kind of deliberate choices on, which parts are printed, which parts are molded. And then, of course, it needs to fit in whatever set it comes in. So if it's a pilot flying a cockpit, we obviously make sure they fit in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's very interesting. So you've got some great minifigs you showed us there, and then you also have some sets. So if you want to talk about, maybe start with the big snow speeder set here, and kind of your design process approach when you sit down and okay, we're going to make this large snow speeder set. How does that process kind of work in the steps in that process?
Well, first of all, we need to figure out what to make, which ship or vehicle or whatever we want to make. And in this case, the snow speeder that came out not so long ago, we were just looking back. We could see feedback and requests from fans that, the snow speeder, we haven't done that one since year 2003, so maybe it was on time to create a new one. And again, as mentioned before, we start from scratch. And in the meantime, we have got a lot of new elements, so we have a lot of new opportunities for actually make the model more accurate. And the old one was good for that time, but I definitely think also that the new one has developed quite dramatically. And then also, more often now, we're also creating special elements. We are always, when creating a model like this, trying to make it from existing Lego pieces. And that is just, the nature of Lego, that basically you can create whatever you want from the bricks you got. That's our philosophy. But in some cases, we have to make special elements. Typically, for Star Wars, for Lego Star Wars, you would see that as cockpit elements, because transparent things are the most difficult ones to build. So in this case, you can also see we have the cockpit front. That is actually a special piece, but still, when we then are creating a new piece, we are trying to make the elements as generic as possible. So this cockpit front here, as you can see, it's not. It has the shape for the snow speeder, but it's definitely also something that is so generic, can be used for a lot of other purposes. Mm-hmm. So, and that's super important for us. We don't want to create something that is totally special.
Exactly, yeah. So you can create that and someone could buy this set and then use that piece in a lot of other varieties outside of Star Wars.
Hopefully. Yeah. That's really what we try to, stimulate people to do. Yeah.
Definitely. So when you're working on these, is there like computer programs involved for the design process, or is it just like sitting down with a pile of bricks? How does that generally work?
It's different. Different designers, they work differently. We do have the option to actually work digitally and build digitally, and some are doing it. But the most designers, they are actually building with bricks. And you can say, well, both things have benefits. On the digital, it might work faster, but sometimes a physical model is also needed because you need to know if it's stable, doesn't fall apart. Does it balance? Can it, for instance, the snow speeder, would it balance when it's on the stand and so on? So there are a lot of things where, of course, a physical model is needed. But some designers, they are actually designing digitally.
Okay. So yeah, you get a mix of whatever kind of your preferred method is there.
Yes.
Interesting. And with Star Wars line, how do you kind of find the balance between sort of playability and stability? Do you kind of that balance between designing so that it can be played with a lot versus designing so it like looks good, maybe displayed? How does that work as you approach different sets?
Well, I think stability is really one of our main concerns. That the model to be able to be played with. So that's really our main concern. But I think hopefully or fortunately the designers in the team, they are so skilled that they are actually capable to make some really appealing looking and accurate models, even though they have to consider that they have to be stable. But that's also why you would see in many of the play themes models, for instance, that we have hidden technique elements and so on, because they are structurally very good for adding stability to the models.
Mm-hmm. And maybe we can also add that one of the things you'll see, of course, a lot is things like stud shooters, little functions that not necessarily would be in the actual ship as you see in the movie, but it would make a lot of sense for us. So we oftentimes add little shooting functions, little action items, just to increase the playability. So you got an example here where you have a lot of things recreated from the movie. For instance, the iconic helmet on scene. Let's hope it works. Yeah, it does. No. Well, I'm a graphic designer, and yeah. Anyway, we also worked here to have the turning function, for instance. So this is really integral to this part that you can actually switch between Anakin and then Darth Vader, who rises in the end, and then freaks out and pushes all the force pushes everyone away. So this is a bit of a retelling the movie scene, and sometimes we take some greater liberties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. We brought in the second designer to get the helmet function to work there.
Actually, it is quite easy. You just need to try it a couple of times.
Just not stand on the other side of the table.
You get used to it. Yeah, it works well. Well, this has been really great, guys. I appreciate both of you talking with me about the Star Wars sets and kind of your design process. It's a really fascinating look at this. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me. I appreciate it.